Crystal PvP. I've wanted to make a video on the topic for a long time now, but the issue with that is, no matter how I make the video, it's 100% guaranteed that it's going to get negative feedback with how the community is. This video will touch all ends of Crystal PvP, and for the sake of convenience, I'll separate the video into sections. Now, I wrote the script for this video, edited it, and provided the clips for this video. However, cbrady is doing the voiceover. Appreciate him for doing said thing, and it's also worth mentioning that this will be uploaded to his channel. It's kind of like a collaboration sort of thing, even though I'm doing most of the work, but it's fine, it's fine. Hope you guys enjoy. His channel link will be in the description, and let's go ahead and get on with the video.
Hey guys, what's going on? cbrady here. Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're going to be discussing essentially the history of PvP and how it's changed from its very early stages, even what we considered now to be 1.7 or 1.8 PvP, to the current version of Minecraft, which 2b2t is still on version 1.12, but will be updating to 1.14 very soon. It comes down to there have been a lot of advancements and a lot of updates made through Minecraft throughout the years, as you guys have known. And the most notable way people PvP are not with protection 4 armor and a sharp 5 sword. As we know it, that simply had died out around 1.9, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But we're going to be covering the basics of Crystal PvP. So I have this video separated in a couple sections. The first one is what is Crystal PvP. Then we're going to discuss the fundamentals of Crystal PvP and how to properly use what you have to engage in combat with other players on a server. The third section is going to be the type of end Crystal PvP that is used, the type of platforms and items. And of course our last one is going to be the community and how specifically end Crystal PvP has impacted the PvP community, especially in recent versions of Minecraft. I thought this would be a very special video to make because it's been extremely... it's not that 1.7 PvP is stale, which I think most of my viewers are coming from, but there's been a huge... I think many people who play 2b2t either don't realize where it's come from, and on the opposite side, people who only play 1.7 have no idea that what combat is like. Of course, they think combat was ruined in the updates to Minecraft, but of course, it was just simply changed. Combat does still exist. So, to start out, what is Crystal PvP? So, in short, Crystal PvP is essentially where you use end crystals. If you look at my inventory here, these end crystals are found in the end. If you guys know, when you fight the end dragon, end crystals are small explosives that have been in the game ever since the Ender Dragon boss flight was implemented. They're kind of little. They take up about 1 by 1 or a little bit bigger than that. They're used to heal the Ender Dragon, and they would actually do quite a bit of damage to the player. If you try to get to the end, they'll actually almost kill you if you don't have really good gear, if you're close to it and they explode. For the longest time since the release of End Crystal, they have only been entities, which means there is no way to actually obtain it. You couldn't give yourself it in survival, and it wasn't an actual item. It didn't have an item ID. It was an entity. So flash forward to 1.9, which is the combat update. So a lot of this, 1.9 was seen as the most negative update in Minecraft's history. PvP was forever changed, and a lot of people argue in a bad way. You couldn't click, 20 clicks per second. There was a cooldown. They added in shields, and the sword PvP, as I'm going to call it and refer to it in this video, was no longer possible for player-to-player combat. I mean, it was possible, but it simply just was not applicable to many of the servers that were trying to run the same game modes that they have been running for quite some time. Mojang, of course, implemented the new combat system, as well as they introduced new weapons and accessories for combat, like I said. The End Crystal was also added in as an item, so this is 1.9 where everything changed. And the purpose of the End Crystal now was to resummon the Ender Dragon so you can beat the game multiple times. This is when Minecraft was going through a huge change in terms of how they were structuring the end of the game and what you could do after you beat the Ender Dragon. As time went on, players started to adjust to the new changes. For example, on 2B2T, which is where you're going to be seeing most of the footage today, and is where end crystal PvP is most common, and I tend to argue is where it actually formed, players would adjust and start using end crystal PvP to engage in combat with other players. One of the foremost players in 2B2T's history was a player by the name of Baba J. He took a trip to spawn with a stack of end crystals in his inventory, and once he arrived, he started to use the end crystals on obsidian next to the feet of players, obviously killing them and causing massive damage and killing players with full diamond protection 4 in just one hit. End crystals alone aren't actually that deadly. In fact, most servers, they practically don't do any damage. The key difference here and why they are so used to a very high extent on 2B2T comes down to the difficulty of the server. So 2B2T's difficulty is set to hard, and this causes, similar to mob damage and mob health, it elevates the end crystal damage to a much higher level, a lot more than usual. So time went on, and end crystals started to become the meta in PvP for many Anarchy servers. So long gone were the days of course, using sharpness 5, and as it sits today, end crystal PvP is the only form of PvP that people use on the server. So let's go into our next section, the fundamentals of crystal PvP. So firstly, crystal PvP is done using enchanted golden apples. These golden apples are different than 1.7. Of course, we all know about the nerf that happened. So they're not gapples, they're not god apples, but they're just simply enchanted golden apples. These still restore health. They're just they don't make you unkillable. You also will be using a full set of diamond armor with Unbreaking 3, Protection 4, Mending, with or without thorns, and it's also very important you have blast protection on the leggings. The reason you want blast protection on the leggings is whether you have 4 pieces of armor with blast protection or 1, Minecraft doesn't actually make it that big of a difference. So just having 1 article of armor with blast protection will do the job in terms of protecting you from blast protections like creeper explosions or, of course, crystal explosions. So the other armor is obviously you use for protection to get the most out of that, but because end crystal PvP uses mostly a blast power radius, you do need an article of armor to actually not still die in one hit. Crystal PvP is still done in 1.14, although 2B2T is still in version 1.12. And keep in mind that many of the tactics that you guys are seeing in this video may change as time goes on and updates are continued to be released. This video is still based around 1.12.2, which is, of course, the main server that we were talking about, 2B2T. And it's the current version for the majority of other similar Anarchy servers. So as you guys saw before, crystal PvP can only be placed on obsidian. It can also be placed on bedrock, but it can't be placed on any other blocks. So most crystal PvP is done on an Anarchy server which allows hacks. So therefore crystal PvP is done with hacked clients, and it uses a lot of tools. A lot of hacked clients include tools that allow it to be a lot easier to engage in crystal PvP. Once a crystal is placed, it has to be broken in order to inflict the explosive damage. Now this can be done by hitting it or using an arrow or some sort of entity to interfere with the end crystal to actually inflict that explosive damage. A lot of hack clients today, 1.12.2 hack clients, for example Impact or the Future client, have something known as Crystal Aura to break it for you. And most PvPers will have this tool binded and toggled multiple times throughout a crystal PvP match. So once the crystal is broken, like I said, it will inflict damage based on the location, and this location can vary depending on where the player is. So if the crystal is below a player, they take a decent amount of damage, and the same will go if the crystal is right next to the player. If the crystal is placed above the player, it practically does no damage, and this is also true if the crystal is 1 block above the player's feet. Long story short, you want the crystal to be as close to the player as possible, otherwise they won't take a lot of damage. PvP now is not as much of a sweaty, as I call it, a sweaty click fest in terms of trying to click 20 CPS, as it is now much more a strategy game. There are strategies involved in 1.7 PvP, but simply it comes down to how fast you can click. I mean, if you can click fast, you're usually going to have a pretty good shot. Here, it's all down to strategy and whether or not you are quick enough to place your blocks where you need to place them. And it brings out the strategy in a lot of PvP players. So crystals can't be placed right next to each other, obviously due to how large their hitbox is, which is larger than a 1x1. They can be placed one block away with one block of air between them. Crystals can't be used if there is fire, entities, or arrows, which are also entities on top of the obsidian or bedrock. Crystals can be placed by right-clicking any side of the block. However, no matter what side of the block you right-click, the crystal will always be placed on top. Crystals cannot be placed if there is one block clearance. They can, however, be placed if there is only a 2-block clearance. Again, crystals are still entities, although they do exist as items. They do. They are also are entities and will be triggered if they take any damage, including firing a bow and arrow, or a splash potion, which you won't be likely to carry. But if it interacts with an entity, it will explode. So those are basically the basics. So there are different ways that end crystal PvP is used. Specifically on 2B2T, there's 4 main ones. So there are the flat platform or obsidian PvP, where usually it's just a flat platform made out of obsidian. Although it doesn't have to be obsidian. If you do carry obsidian in your inventory, you can use that to place the end crystal. There's also fights on natural terrain, which are a little bit more uncommon. There is very rare fights that happen 30 million blocks out, and this is the most interesting one. So when you are 30 million blocks away from spawn, if you place down an end crystal, and I'll try to find a clip to show during this, if you place an end crystal down on obsidian, it actually will not show up where you actually click it. This is due because you are 30 million blocks away, and the way that the server works and the way that your connection works, it's a very hard thing to explain, but it's a lot different. And then of course there's at bedrock level and crystal PvP. Those are basically the 4 different terrains that you would encounter in a crystal PvP fight. Alright guys, and for the last part of my video here, I actually have a special guest, John 20410. He's been a part of the 1.12 and End Crystal PvP community. He's rather well known and a prominent figure. He kindly set aside some time to talk with me about some of the things that I don't have first-hand experience with, so I want to thank him for coming in into this video and doing an interview with me. Welcome, John.
Hi.
So my first question to you is, in terms of a community standpoint, because I have a lot of experience with 1.7 in the HEF community, which I'm not sure if you are familiar with, what is your outlook on the newer PvP community as a whole?
It's stupid. Like, nowadays you can just 32k people now that they're like everywhere, and you can like buy them for like 1 cent or something, and everyone just uses them, and it like stupid now.
What about the general atmosphere of the people who are involved? Would you say it's a toxic community, or how would you describe the overall, again, atmosphere?
The community is very toxic. An example is City Boss. He usually says easy after every kill he gets.
Is that I don't know if we have different definition of toxicity, but is there, like, for example, in 1.7, there's a lot of doxing, swatting, a lot of things get really personal in terms of people who have grudges against one another. Is there anything comparable to that?
Here. Yeah.
Can you give me an example?
Same thing. There was this one kid, Panda Sauce. He was like doxxed, and they like called his parents or something, and then like his dad had to talk to him about it because he was like being like an actual retard on 2B.
Okay. Going to a lighter subject, what impact have you had personally? I know you're a well-known figure and have had some prominence in terms of Crystal PvP, but what impact have you had, in your own words, as not only a player but a developer of a hacking service?
I added a module to Rusher Hack that basically made it pointless to 32k other people, called Hopper Nuker, and it breaks the hoppers around you so no one can grab 32Ks.
How long have you been in the not only Crystal PvP community but also the Minecraft community?
Minecraft community since like 2013, and 2B2T since like late 2015, and like the Crystal PvP community like 2016.
How has working with Rush or Hack changed your outlook on PvP?
It made me realize how pointless it is. Like, now that everyone has other items, like, what's the point of even PvPing if you're not going to gain anything except, um, not even relevance, but like, there's actually no point to PvPing anymore.
What do you consider the golden age of PvP on PvP? Obviously, you don't seem like a fan of it today, but was there ever an era that you preferred?
Yes, the area between Rusher and the time tokens were added. The reason being is because Rusher brought a lot of people from the factions community, and they really like to like PvP, if you understand what I mean.
Of
And
course.
that's why it was like such a good era for PvP on 2B and 2T. So, and especially because totems weren't a thing, so you couldn't have extra lives basically.
Who do you think, impromptu question here, who do you think some of the best PvPers in the 2B community are? If you had to
Like
name a couple.
now,
Yeah,
or like, um, shit, I honestly don't know, to be honest.
that's all right. Anything else that you would like to say that you find anything important of note?
I think that's it.
All right, well, thank you for your time today. Everyone, thank you guys for watching the video today. This has been a really fun video putting together for you guys. And if you guys enjoyed this content, make sure you guys leave a like, of course. That's your prerogative. And I've been having a lot of fun times recording on 2B2T, and hopefully that'll continue. So make sure to comment what you guys would like to see in the future in terms of the server. And again, thank you guys for watching.